Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, and our friend Laith Marouf is back with us. Welcome back, Laith.
Great to be with you, Nima.
I want to start with the situation with Hezbollah in Lebanon. The West is trying to do everything and somehow convincing the government in Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah. What's your take on what's going on and the way that they're pushing for disarmament of Hezbollah, and on the other hand, the reality in Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, the Zionists and the imperialists have a very big imagination. It's like they live in Narnia on a different plane of reality that doesn't actually correspond to the facts on the ground and or the facts of this war that is still ongoing. So the situation with this idea of disarming Hezbollah, it's crazy on many levels because we just watched the disarmament of Syria and how the minorities, the Shia, the Christians, the Alawites, the Druze were basically slaughtered, mass rapes and mass killings, and nobody's caring. Every day I open the news from Syria because I am Syrian, and I'm looking every day. There's a whole village completely ethnically cleansed in Hama or Homs areas, and Turkic foreign fighters with their families from Uzbekistan and Uyghur and Chechen populating the area and be given citizenship and passports. So and there's now like over 1 million Syrians that crossed into Lebanon that are Shia, Alawi, and Christian. So anyone that thinks that with or without Hezbollah, that the Shia community in Lebanon, the Christian community in Lebanon will willingly disarm themselves and offer themselves as rape and pillaging victims is insane. Forget Hezbollah and its rearming that has been happening since the minute the ceasefire, quote unquote, was called in Lebanon. The population itself, the Shia community, every family, the Christian communities, the Druze communities, they're all arming up. Everybody is buying any weapon they can get a hand on and stocking it in their home: machine guns, handguns, RPGs, whatever. Every house is now stacked. Nobody will trust the possibility of a Wahhabi despots coming in control of Lebanon, and nobody wants to be a victim of that. So on that level, it's clear the population of Lebanon is hardened against any disarmaments period. And no matter what these hand-picked vassals like the president or the prime minister or the foreign affairs minister of Lebanon that is yapping a lot, he's part of the Phalange Christian supremacist party. Whatever they say, it doesn't. It's impossible to implement it on the ground in Lebanon. And anyways, we're edging closer and closer back to full hostilities. And the Zionists and the imperialists know this, that they cannot depend on their local Lebanese vassals to disarm Hezbollah. So there is an increase in possibilities of the use of Wahhabi death squads, whether it's the sleeper cells that are already in Lebanon, as happened yesterday. There was a group of Syrian citizens that were arrested in the Dahi preparing bombs to blow up the Ashura procession. And Ashura is the 10 days of mourning for the martyrdom of Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them. And they, in their communication devices, they were directly in communication with Mossad and with Al-Nusra Front, basically Al-Jolani's new regime in Damascus. So this is the most probable rollout of the next stage of the war is sleeper cells that are Wahhabi death squads blowing up stuff in Lebanon, creating chaos on the street, while Wahhabi death squads from the east and the north from within Syrian territory invading the country. The Zionists have shown through their experiment of attempting to invade Lebanon that they cannot fight Hezbollah. Their diaper army, their like women's lingerie army that is only has the training to kill children and women and unarmed civilians. They need monsters to be able to fight Hezbollah, and those monsters are right across the border or in sleeper cells in the streets of Lebanon.
To go against Hezbollah, many of us who are not so much aware of what's going on in Lebanon, we don't know the the power or the strength that Hezbollah possess in terms of the political system of Lebanon. If you want to go against Hezbollah, you have to manage to do something politically, or you go to the base, you go to those people who support Hezbollah. Do you feel any sort of fracture, any sort of weakness on the part of the base who were supporting, who has been supporting, and who are supporting Hezbollah?
Not the slightest. And in fact, I feel there is a hardening of positions in the Shia community specifically. And when I say that, I mean that the Shia community in Lebanon is split between two political parties, Hezbollah and Amal, and Amal being the older political party in the country that's representing the Shia population, and and also the leader of Amal is the Speaker of the Parliament in Lebanon. So they are a little bit more on the liberal side, on the cultural side, on the government side than the fighting. But they have an armed wing, and they were present in during the battle, and they have given many martyrs. So what I saw is that the Amal crowd has become more radical, actually, since this war. And so what you would hear from a much more conservative religious member of Hezbollah prior to this war, now you're hearing from a liberal Amal member, Shia member. Okay, so that's clear. The mass destruction and kind of indiscriminate bombardment of civilian homes and the deliberate destruction of full villages after the ceasefire came into effect, when Hezbollah basically listened to what Amal wanted and the Speaker of the House, Nabih Berri. Nabih Berri is the one that wanted the ceasefire. And in order to keep the Shia population together, Hezbollah agreed to it. So that decision that was led by Amal resulted in the mass destruction of tens of villages in South Lebanon after the ceasefire. So anyone that supported that had now seen the negative results, and therefore is more hardened in their position and more radical in their belief as that armed resistance is the only way to defeat the Zionists and or get any form of justice.
Laith, we had the fight or the war directly between Iran and Israel. And Donald Trump right now, he's gonna meet with Netanyahu about the great. He said that he's gonna talk with him about the great success they had with Iran and how they somehow damaged or inflicted some sort of suffering on Iranian nuclear facilities that it would be so difficult for Iran to rebuild. All of these sort of argument on his part. But what was the outcome of the interaction of the fight between Iran and Israel? Iran on one side, Israel and the United States on the other side. What was the outcome for Hezbollah? How is was that influencing the situation, the position of Hezbollah in Beirut, or it didn't have that much of influence?
It definitely had a huge influence, I would say, on many levels. On the one level, there was a kind of depressive moment after the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the pager attacks and eventually the mass destruction of those villages after the ceasefire. And when the hundreds of Iranian missiles were flying from Beirut to the south of Lebanon before they hit their targets in occupied Palestine. That moment in itself uplifted the population. Everyone that was depressed that the genocide is still continuing also in Gaza suddenly was uplifted. And of course, you could see that across the whole globe. It's not only our region here, but here, this Lebanon specifically, watching those missiles every night, the people coming out to the roofs to watch those missiles and driving to the south to feel the earth shaking and hear the echoes of the explosions. Okay, those people, it became a pastime. So that shows you on the psychological level how much Iran's retaliation to the Israeli and American aggression actually uplifted people and gave them hope for a better future. Now, we look at it also from a military perspective. Iran showed that it can confront the whole American empire and its technologies in the region. You know, those Iranian missiles, when they were being fired, they had to face off with all the American naval and NATO assets, naval assets in the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, in the Arabian Sea, sorry, in the Red Sea, and in the Mediterranean. They had to deal with all the air defenses of NATO that are stationed in all the Gulf countries, the Arabian Peninsula countries, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and eventually face off with the Israeli air defense systems, and it penetrated them all. And the United States couldn't risk a full-out war with Iran because of the mass destruction that from that experiment, it showed that Iran can destroy all the American bases in the region, lead to mass casualties in American military personnel, and destruction in the infrastructure of the vassals, the oil and gas infrastructure specifically. So the United States had to use its most advanced weapons below the nuclear threshold, flying those B-2s all the way from the United States, and failed. So this shows us that the new technologies available to the axis of resistance are capable of not only defeating the Zionist colony, they're also capable of defeating the whole might of the Zionist empire governed from Washington, D.C.
The point that you mentioned, Laith, somehow is important because when you talk, you mentioned the situation about the war between Iran and Israel. They're talking about Israelis may prepare to attack again, to attack on Iran. I don't see the reason for that. I don't see what could come out of these if they decide to go and attack Iran again. What comes out of this attitude? Do you feel that it's somehow is the threat there to attack Iran again, or if so, what sort of outcome do they want from any sort of attack on Iran?
I don't think they will be attacking Iran again anytime soon. That doesn't mean that they're not going to attack Iran. And definitely, they will not be attacking the same way they did. They may resort to terrorism, as we saw the beginnings of that happening here in Lebanon. We may see activation of these Wahhabi death squads, and Iran is fast right now, concentrating on capturing all these Wahhabi and Zionist agents around the country. Hundreds of Afghani and Azerbaijani agents have been captured specifically over the last few days. I think 2 nights ago, it was like 60 Azerbaijani agents captured with all their, telecommunication equipment that they had with them, and now the network of the assets that they have is being exposed. And we saw how that resulted also, by the way, in Russia also arresting Azerbaijani agents in the South Caucasus area, and then Azerbaijan retaliating by arresting the whole office of Sputnik Radio in Azerbaijan, and the journalists and the directors and the technicians and everybody. So it's clear where the path forward for the Zionists is those terrorist actions, and Iran must now, as it is doing, clean up as much as possible of that. But nobody is immune to such attacks. So no matter how much surveillance and intelligence you have, of course, somebody can blow up Paris. If they decide to lone wolf it. So that's about Iran. But the Israelis have no choice at this moment, after getting this public whipping, by Iran, and after the United States retreating openly from confrontation with Iran. The Israelis have no choice but to try to prove themselves to their own colonists, who are now scared. They've been raised as the chosen people, that they are the hand of God. It's not God's hand is with them. They are the hand of God, and that nobody can defeat them. And now they've been defeated, and they cried for a ceasefire, and they've lost tens of billions of dollars in infrastructure and equipment with Iran's retaliation. So it's most likely that they will try to trigger, as we see, a war with Lebanon, and or a war with Yemen one more time, to just get a quick win and claim that they and that's only in their mind. They're not going to get a quick win neither in Lebanon and or Yemen. In fact, if they enter again, an attack by the death squads from Syria will bring together the whole nation here. I tell you that there will be Christian battalions in Hezbollah created, Druze battalions. If no natural, new militias are formed by those communities to fight and defend themselves, this country will not fall to the Wahhabi death squads, and the Israelis will attempt to invade. While this battle is happening, this is the only scenario ahead of us, and also they will be defeated. So let's see the mass expulsion of those Syrian minorities from Syria into Lebanon. Also, how will that play out? For sure, those Christian Alawi and Druze and Shia Syrians that are now in Lebanon, the million somewhat, they will also be armed to fight, because now they're going to be cornered in a slaughterhouse. Nobody's going to let the Wahhabi death squads or the Zionists succeed in this.
You mentioned how they're trying to change the texture of society in Syria, bringing people from outside, people who don't belong to Syria, but they want to. How much of do we know how much of these people who are running the country are from outside, from other countries? They're not from the region. Do we have any
Yeah,
sort of agreement?
yeah, we know at least half of the officer corps now within the new Syrian military is foreigners, including the kind of the commander in chief, the highest ranking general in this new army, which is basically a bandits and mercenaries. And so you've got Turks and Uzbeks and Uyghurs with high-ranking officer status in the Syrian army. This is unheard of before, I think, anywhere in the planet except in the Zionist colony, right? So it's a scary situation, um, especially with the mass destruction of the Syrian records from the National Registry and the Foreign Affairs and every passport office in the country were targeted in the first day of bombardment by the Israelis. And any offices that survived those were set on fire by Al Nusra Front in every province. There's no record anymore. The only way a Syrian outside Syria can now prove that they are Syrian is they hold on to whatever they had from before. And all these, Wahhabi death squads that are in Syria, the more than 200,000 of them, now are bringing their families. So wives and daughters and sons and parents and so on. So this number 200,000 is going to mushroom to probably a million, right? You can't. There's no family of these Wahhabis that is less than 4 people, and now we talk brothers and sisters and parents, and it's so suddenly we're going to have a demographic change in a country. I think that we haven't seen since the end of World War I vast change in demographics like this, and it's not only neighbors. Let's say the change of population between India and Pakistan. This is almost like we haven't heard from about it since the invasion of the Americas. There's people from the other side of Asia ending up inside Syria, forcefully becoming citizens, colonizing, settling. This is not unheard of since the settlement of the Americas and the Oceania.
Donald Trump wants a ceasefire between Israel and Palestinians, as he tries to picture that. But after all, it seems that they want to eliminate, they want to remove Hamas from the scene. And he said that this is the final chance of having some sort of ceasefire. Is that going to come? Are they going to be able to remove Hamas from the scene?
Yes, they continue to live in Narnia. You know, it's a total fantasy in their head, and they have this idea of supremacy, that manifest destiny of white man in North America and or the chosen people uh, colonizing Palestine. And the reality is clashing with that so severely that it's like they have a concussion. Okay. And they keep on repeating the same things that they said 10 years ago, you know, and it doesn't work anymore. It's not, maybe 10 years ago, there was a possible chance for them. There's nothing. It's so severe. And this is why we see also how the collective consciousness of humanity now also has reached a point after saturation of 22 months of broadcasted Holocaust. and the images of the destruction of the Zionist colony by the Iranian weapons have, we've now crossed a threshold in global human consciousness to the point of somebody getting on stage and screaming death, death to the IDF. Okay, that's a line much higher than the line of somebody on stage of free, free Palestine, which we've been used to. So it's a threshold in mass human culture. And this is causing them to entrench themselves in their, manufactured fantasy, and entrench them in their reactionary venom, as we see how crazy they went against Bob Dylan when he said those words on stage. It's the insanity, the collective insanity of Western media, which is a reflection of the collective insanity of the Western elite, is unprecedented. I think, it's even beyond October 7th. Oh, talking about Israeli kids in the ovens and Israeli women getting their breasts cut up and mass rapes, which is all manufactured. That was a hysterical moment because they couldn't believe that the Palestinian barefoot warriors in an extermination camp can fly down at them from hover gliders and taking over 12 of their bases. That's the collective insanity that caused them to do all those lies. Now they're they're in a collective insanity against the words of an previously unknown artist. Shook them to the core. It's so you could see how it's even more of a collective insanity than having that reaction to being defeated militarily by barefoot warriors. So now we're past that stage, and they're not going to be able, as Western elite, come up with any tactical maneuvers that can, in any shape or form, delay the inevitable collapse of the Zionist colony and the delay of the collapse of their monopolar empire ruled from Washington, D.C.
Laith, what we're witnessing with the case of West, I think since the aftermath of the World War II, they had the dominance in everything. It was all about democracy, freedom, all of these. And all those definitions are somehow collapsing before our eyes with the case of, principally with the case of Lebanon, with what's going on in Lebanon. Because everybody's seeing what's going on and how the West is behaving, supporting Israel in their fight against the people who have nothing to fight back against Israelis. And you've mentioned the way that they're trying to distinguish, they're trying to put sanctions. You're not going to get visa to go to the United States. You're going to be sanctioned by the government in the United States, which, by the way, the United States, land of free and for free and all of that. How is that? I think they are destroying each and everything that they've been fighting for, at least in the media, that we are representative of those words: freedom, free society, freedom of speech, all of these. They are all collapsing before our eyes, and nobody seems to perceive the gravity of what's going on and the level of. You look at the way that they have invested in all these narratives, all these rhetorics, and all their, it's just collapsing before our eyes. How is that? How are they gonna? Do they really believe that can they can somehow get back and find a solution for that, or they don't care? They're just getting to the point they don't care what's going on. Let's go, let's support Israel for whatever they want to do. And because here it's not just about the United States and Israel, the whole world is changing, everything is changing. Look at SCO, Shanghai Cooperation, look at BRICS, look at the way that people around the world are supporting Palestine. I think this was These are colossal changes, huge changes that are happening before our eyes. But the media, even the media who was responsible for making all those rhetoric, doesn't care, just getting along with what's going on with Israel and the way that Netanyahu wants to picture the situation in Palestine.
You know, the best way to analyze this and understand what these things is to look at what the Arabic Iranian philosopher Ibn Khaldun said. Okay. Um, at the third generation of an empire, which the United States is living that, and a third generation of a state like the colony, the Zionist colony, which are there living that, the differences in wealth and why somebody had the wealth. Let's say the beginning of a generation, a dynasty, or the beginning of a state, or a beginning of an empire. Those who create that, they actually fought for it, whether you agree of their outcome or not, and deserved under those conditions to win the race, okay, and get where they get. By the third generation, you have people like Elon Musk that are wealth, combined over wealth for three generations, that they don't deserve to be in a leadership position. They're like high on whatever drug he's on, and they're snorting it and talking about themselves as if they are the epitome of science and philosophy. And you have somebody like the Bidens and the Trumps that are, senile, decaying bags of pedophilia and drug consumption. Look at the son of Biden and all of that, of course, okay? This is natural. This is the course of history. So when you have leadership, when you have a society reaching that point of decay within the third generation, and all it can produce in leadership, whether it's the arts and media and or political and or financial, are individuals that do not deserve to be there, that are the actual implementation of that decay of the society. Look at all those journalists. None of them deserve to be where they are. They're all nepotism and pledge of allegiance to the Zionist political ideology to get to be on one of those main TVs. They're unable as journalists to come up with a actual analysis of what's happening around them. So now as we understand this, it's clear the United States and the West cannot birth in leadership other than those EU leaders that you see, and those Canadian leaders or the American leaders, and they will not be able to come up with tactical maneuvers to achieve their strategic goal of remaining as the hegemon power. And therefore, have no fear. None of them can stop the time, and their time is over. It's the rise now of the rest of humanity.
Laith, when with the situation in Gaza, in Palestine, you mentioned that Israel is attacking Lebanon, in southern part of Lebanon? They're still attacking. They want to pick a fight, even maybe somehow escalate with Yemen. But how can someone imagine the situation in Gaza, in Palestine, to have some sort of end on the part of the resistance? What do they feel about? What would be a reasonable deal between Palestinians and the West? I'm talking about the United States, because Israel simply is not going to that picture because Israel doesn't want it. But if the United States wants to get something, what is reasonable on the part of resistance to get in Palestine?
What's reasonable under the sacrifices that were given is an end to apartheid in Palestine and the end of the colonization. And of course, that's something that's not going to be given to the Palestinians. So the Palestinians have to take it. And if you notice, what is the project of the empire on a wider scale for the region is that Abrahamic Accord. And I would call it the Abrahamic religion, the fabrication of an Abrahamic religion. And basically, the Anglo experiment of merging Judaism and Christianity with the St. George Bible, putting the Old Testament, quote unquote, meaning the Torah, in the Bible as a rebellion against the church, and how that molded a new white man, which didn't exist. Again, white man doesn't exist. It's a fabrication in the colonial furnace of North America. That was because Christianity told you don't kill, don't steal, okay? But you want to colonize, so how are you going to do it? You fabricate a new religion. So in a way, the Anglican and Protestant church, which are a kind of idolatry against original Christianity, like Catholicism or Orthodoxy, that is the model that the West wants to force on the Arabic people and the Muslim people in general, with this Abrahamic Accord. And countries like the UAE are at the forefront of that. If you remember, they built that worshipping area with a synagogue, a church, and a mosque in a triangle, and it looks like half a Star of David, basically, right? And they want to force the Muslims to change from Islam to Wahhabism. And with this, adopting this new, now you're going to have the King Trump Bible or Quran, King Trump Quran, that will have an attachment to it that is partially the Bible and partially the Talmud, and want to sever all of history and the fact that these religions came in different centuries apart with different conditions that society has developed into, and where when they came, they called themselves a reformation of something before, and now they want to merge them the same way that they fabricated this Judeo-Christian civilization by bastardizing Christianity into this. And that's what the whole Abraham Accord is. And clearly, no Muslim, true Muslim, whether they're Sunni or Shia, will accept that. There is no way. This is part of what is the why the Abrahamic Accord also will not happen. It's part of also why it's a fantasy. And this is also partially why there is now these mass killing objectives, genocides and mass depopulations, because the population of the region 120 years after the insertion of this colony in the heart of the Muslim world are still refusing to accept Zionism. So you have to achieve it by ethnically cleansing people, by beating them into submission. This is why they want to humiliate and mass rape the Syrian and Iraqi population. You don't think those mass rape campaigns have no reason for them except the forceful humiliation into submission of a people that are resisting your Western, not you, but the Western colonial objectives, and that's basically what is the Abraham Accords.
Laith, before wrapping up, do you believe that if living in, I were living in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, I would argue that we need some sort of balance in the Middle East. What does that mean? It means that the acts of resistance, together with Iran, Yemen, all these together, should have some sort of balance between the West and the acts of resistance, because their survival, in my opinion, if anything happens to the acts of resistance, they have no power. What do they have? What do they have to protect them? What do they have? They can do whatever they want to these Arab states, to these countries that they don't have any sort of army, they don't have any sort of political or economical leverage on anybody. They're living a good life. Let's confess but beyond that, they have nothing. They need it. They need the acts of resistance. I think they need the acts of resistance more than what acts of resistance needs them. Is there any sort of strategic thinking or critical thinking in these states?
It's very hard to tell you no. I know you wish. I know a lot of people wish, but think of that decay of the American elite, and now add to it a royal family put into power that never had to go to school even. Um, Most of them barely can even speak Arabic. Uh, and the whole royal family is there, are surrounded by advisors that are, number one, feeding them drugs and alcohol and prostitutes and you know children for their pedophilia needs, and then telling them what to do, because and if there is an Emirati or a Saudi or a Qatari citizen that studies specializations in engineering or in medicine or what have you, they can't find uh, positions except when they kiss the hand of the Emir, right? So anyone that's actually of critical thinking that is for the interest of their own nation or state is not given any power in those societies. So I feel I love my Arabian brothers in the Arabian Peninsula. I lived in what is called the Saudi Kingdom. I know these people. These are decent people. And if they want to be left alone, and also they don't want the Zionist colony there or the Americans there, they want to be good with their neighbors. They want to have the resources of their nation directed to the betterment of themselves and the Arabic peoples and the Muslim peoples in general, but they're not allowed. So I don't see hope in that change in those countries. But look at the words of Netanyahu just 2 days ago. He said, we finally have don't need to worry about our number one enemy, which was Arab nationalism, Arab unification. With the destruction of, basically, we're reading between the lines, with the destruction of all the Arab republics and that were advocating for this unification: Libya, Syria, Iraq, Yemen. Okay. And now their biggest fear is Iranian nationalism. This is according to um, uh, Netanyahu. What he means is their biggest fear is the axis of resistance. And Iran, being a sovereign country, caring for its own and using its resources to strengthen itself and its allies against the Western hordes. So Iran is the target, will be the target. The axis of resistance will be the target. The vassal enemies of liberation in the region will stay as they are until the fall of the Zionist colony. But when the Zionist colony falls, none of these vassals will remain for long, because the Arabic masses that have been put down, forget even talking about Muslim alliance. Let's even look at just the culture, the Arabic culture, the Arabic peoples that have been put down for 100 years, not allowed to unify the largest linguistic cultural group on the planet after the Han Chinese, has been divided into 22 countries by force for 100 years. What's going to stop it when there is no more Zionist colony standing in the way of unification? I think that's the greatest hope. And of course, this should grow to a bigger confederation of peace in the whole region that includes our brothers and sisters in Iran and beyond.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laith, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Good to be with you, Nimia. See you soon.
Take care, Laith. See
You
you
too.
soon. Bye-bye.